welcome to Dose of Wonder. I'm Caitlin, your guide on this journey through mindfulness, mental health, grief, and personal growth. Each episode will dive into honest explorations and gentle reflections to help you find moments of calm, clarity, and a little bit of wonder too. So grab your favorite cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's get started. Hey friends, welcome back to the podcast. So let me tell you what happened the other day. One of my coworkers in one of my virtual jobs sent me a message that honestly felt like a scolding. There were capital letters involved, and you know what that does to a person's nervous system online. It wasn't meant to be cruel, I'm sure, but it came across as condescending, frustrated, and irritated. They were upset that I'd done something apparently I wasn't supposed to, except later on I realized I actually was supposed to do that thing, because it's part of my role. At the time, though, I didn't know that. So I did what I often do when I feel like I've made someone unhappy. I apologized, profusely, way too quickly, before I even stopped to think about what had really happened. And then the rumination began. You know that spiral. I replayed the message in my mind over and over and over. It rattled me for the rest of the day, and into the next, and, embarrassingly, even on the third. It was such a small thing, really, but it left me completely deflated. My confidence tanked. My self-worth felt shaky. And the whole time I was thinking, why does this kind of thing hit me so hard? Then, out of nowhere, this thought popped into my head. Maybe I'm a highly sensitive person. And I swear it was like everything clicked right then. If you've never heard the term before, highly sensitive person, or HSP, comes from psychologist Elaine Aron's research. It describes about 20% of people, those whose nervous systems process information and emotions more deeply than average. It's not a disorder. It's a trait, a temperament, a way of being wired. When you're an HSP, your system doesn't just skim the surface of things. It dives in. Everything gets absorbed more deeply. You feel things more intensely, think about them longer, and notice subtleties that most people miss, which can be both a gift and a curse. So let's go back to that email for a second. For an HSP, criticism isn't just feedback, it's a gut punch. Even mild critique can cut deep into your sense of self-worth. It's not that you're being dramatic, it's that your system literally processes the emotional sting more intensely. That's why it can feel like getting psychologically knocked down. You replay it, you analyze it, you feel it again and again, like being poked in the same bruise over and over. And it doesn't just affect your mood, it affects your focus, your creativity, your whole sense of safety. So you find yourself walking on eggshells at work, constantly terrified of making a mistake or apologizing way too much. So if you find yourself walking on eggshells at work, constantly terrified of making a mistake or apologizing way too much, you might just be an HSP trying to survive in an environment that doesn't quite match your wiring. But here's the fascinating part. The same sensitivity that makes you vulnerable is also what makes you perceptive, empathetic, and deeply conscientious. HSPs are detailed-oriented problem solvers. We notice nuances, pick up emotional undercurrents, and care about doing things well. That same brain that replays an awkward email on loop, it's also the one that spots beauty in the small things, like a single flower growing through a sidewalk crack, or the soft light on your morning walk. This deep processing isn't selective. It applies to everything. That's why HSPs are often moved to tears by music or sunsets or moments of quiet connection. We feel the world in high definition. But because of that, our nervous systems get overwhelmed easily, Noise, crowds, conflict, bright lights, rushing deadlines, all of it hits harder. So recovery time isn't a luxury for an HSP. It's a necessity. We need rest the same way our phones need charging, regularly and without guilt. Now here's the cool part. It's not just a personality thing. The sensitivity runs through the biology of the nervous system. HSPs are thought to have less selective sensory filters, meaning that more input gets through, more data, more emotion, more subtle signals. We register more of what's happening around us and inside us. That's why we startle easily, why caffeine can make us jittery, why we sometimes get hangry in about 0.3 seconds. It's all connected to a nervous system running at high alert, taking in and processing everything. Even physical sensations can be stronger. Many HSPs report being more sensitive to pain, headaches, muscle tension, even temperature changes. It's not imagined, it's physiological. And because our systems are so tuned in, we often absorb other people's emotions without realizing it. You walk into a room and you can feel tension before anyone speaks. You sense when someone's upset, even if they're smiling. That empathy is a superpower, but it's also draining. You end up carrying emotional weight that isn't yours. That's why HSPs often need solitude, not to withdraw, but to unplug, to shake off the static of everyone else's energy. And yet, despite all that sensitivity, HSPs aren't fragile. They're often some of the most resilient people you'll meet, because they've spent their whole lives managing intense internal worlds. Let's talk decision-making. If you're an HSP, you probably take longer to make decisions, not because you're indecisive, but because you see every angle. You weigh outcomes, consequences, ripple effects. You're trying to find the right choice, not just the fast one. That's why time pressure feels like torture. Deadlines clash with our natural rhythm of deep processing. It's not laziness, it's a mismatch between the way we're wired and the pace the world demands. But the upside? That carefulness often leads to excellence. HSPs produce quality work, not rushed output. And here's another hallmark. HSPs are meaning seekers. We're not content just doing things. We want to know why. We ask the big questions about life, purpose, and connection. We crave alignment. That's why meaningless work or surface-level conversation can feel draining, even painful. Our brains are built for depth, not constant small talk or shallow hustle. So when I look back at that coworker's message now, I see it differently. Yes, it hurt, but it wasn't just about the email. It was about how my system is built. That deep, wired-in sensitivity that processes everything at full volume. And once you know that about yourself, it's oddly freeing. You stop beating yourself up for being too sensitive. You start realizing that your empathy, intuition, and awareness aren't weaknesses, they're tools. They just need better care. So how do we thrive in a world that isn't exactly designed for sensitivity? First, we start by accepting that our nervous systems need more rest. Schedule downtime in the same way you'd schedule meetings. Second, set boundaries, especially digital ones. The more overstimulated your environment, the more your system suffers. Third, notice your triggers. Criticism, conflict, loud spaces, rushing. And instead of pushing through, practice regulation. Take a walk, breathe, move your body, or talk it out with someone safe. And finally, remember that your deep sensitivity is what makes you compassionate, creative, and attuned. It's what lets you write, connect, and notice the beauty that others rush past. So maybe you're like me, and you've spent your life wondering why little things shake you, why you feel everything so intensely, and why you can't just let it go. Maybe you're not weak or overdramatic. Maybe you're just wired for depth. And maybe that's your greatest strength. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think you might be a highly sensitive person too? Take care of your nervous system this week. It's doing a lot for you. And that's it for this week's podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Next week, I'll be talking about a life musing in being authentic. Until then, thanks for listening, and don't forget to live with a dose of wonder.
In the stillness, we begin with stories stitched in softer skin. A spark, a sigh, a breath, a bend, a dose of wonder, like a friend.